Welcome in, everyone. I'm your host, Jeremy Popolars, and you can find me on Twitter at PopesFFH. Joined as always with my host, Ryan Mackey, who you can also find on Twitter at Mackey_FFB. And this is the Fantasy Playmakers podcast. Today, we're joined by a fellow yards per member at Dynasty_Jake. What's up, Jake?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Pretty good. So what do you got going on right now on Twitter or any type of content platform?
So I kind of just got into it, really. I was doing all the normal Twitter stuff, and I was like, man, I just love this stuff, and I just want to talk about it all the time, but I know my friends who aren't into Dynasty don't care. So I started a new Twitter, and just I guess it's been a lot more fun, and I started digging into content when I saw that people were interested in what I had to say. I think I did the first piece that people actually found interesting was I was talking about PEDs and how they affect injuries, specifically with Will Fuller. And so when I saw that people were actually interested, oh, this could be a lot of fun. So I just kind of kept digging in, and that's where I'm at now, and I've been having a blast with it. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, you've definitely been putting out some pretty cool stuff. I think that was one of the first times I saw was your Will Fuller thread like that on the injuries. That was pretty cool. It's definitely something that I don't necessarily have a lot of background in. So it's pretty cool seeing that or some other guys who go through those injury type threads. Those are cool just to get a background on a player. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm good, man. We were talking before the show. I admittedly was slacking on the research and stuff this week, but we'll get back to it this week, and especially free agency coming up here in about 10 days or so. So we'll get back to it.
Yeah, it's pretty big. Pretty big. We actually had somebody come off the free agency waiver there. I think it was pretty expected, but nice to see Dak finally got his deal from the Cowboys. Yep. I think I saw roughly right now it's 4 years, 126 guaranteed with the possibility of 160, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I saw.
75 mil in the first year.
Yeah, it's
really, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I think I saw some of those numbers, and that's a pretty crazily front-loaded contract, but
yeah.
I think he deserves every penny. I think he's definitely up into that top echelon of quarterbacks, and I think every skill player in that offense definitely gets a bump. What do you guys think?
Agreed. Yeah, I was thinking about CeeDee Lamb earlier, and rookies typically, as they go into their second year, they have that big rookie to sophomore jump, and then with the elite play. I mean, CeeDee Lamb had a good year with Dak under helmet. 5 games? I think I was running the numbers, and Dak was on track for his best year yet. And so to see that we got Amari, CeeDee Lamb, that's going to be a fun offense, and Zeke obviously. But yeah, I'm excited to see how that one pans out.
Yeah, I mean,
he was on pace to throw for over 5,000 yards through the first 5 games. I mean, their defense was atrocious, so if we don't know if that would have gotten any better or not, but the way they played the rest of the year, I don't think so. So he probably would have threw for well over 5,000 yards, and CD probably would have went over 1,000. Cooper definitely went over 1,000. They could have had 3,000-yard receivers in that offense.
Yes, he had two games of 5, over 57 pass attempts. That is insane.
Yeah, I mean, he was tearing it up in those first 5 games, so I'm excited to see. I hope that I know somebody reached out on Twitter and said the same thing. I hope that they go offensive line at 10 if somebody's there. That's worth it just to protect that investment now.
Right. Yep, definitely.
Some other good free agent news is Kyle Rudolph got released, which isn't good for him, but it's good for all of us in the Irv Smith clan. I think that he leaves open 37 targets, and I think he only scored 1 touchdown last year. But if you add up all his PPR points, if Irv Smith gets all those targets, we're talking a tight end 7 finish for this year. What do you guys think about Irv?
You can go ahead, Jeremy.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I like Irv Smith a lot. I got my fair share of him in all my leagues, and he's a athletic tight end. He 87th percentile in 40 time, 71st percentile speed score. He actually was a number 2 tight end in QBR when targeted last year. So I was pretty impressed by that, and he was second in points per target as well. So with more snaps, more playing time, he should very easily be a top. I'm not even gonna put a number on it. He should be a tight end 1 though. He should definitely be a top 12 tight end in that offense with Dalvin and JJ, and I think Thielen takes a little step back, but with those weapons that they have and a defense that's going to be struggling again this year, I think he should be up there in that top 12 tight ends for sure.
So yeah. It's interesting. You guys are both pretty high on him because I'm not. Now I admittedly haven't watched as much tape, I'm sure, but like I digged into his like analytical profile that you were talking about, and the speed score definitely stood out. But other than that, like I didn't see a whole lot. And from all the analytical side of data that I've ran, I haven't quite finished. But from what I've seen, like speed score doesn't necessarily matter. And so with that, and then thinking that he's probably fourth on the team as far as share as on the offense between we got Jefferson, Thielen, and then Cook. So I'm just not too high on him now. But again, last year, I mean, we had 3 or 4 standout tight ends, and then from there it was just a massive cliff. So tight end 7 last year wasn't anything incredible. So that's kind of how I feel about him.
Yeah, I mean, I think the more I do like Irv Smith, but for no doubt, I think that he has a good potential. I just think like almost kind of what you said. I just think it's a low volume passing type offense, which runs a lot through Dalvin Cook. But I think Irv Smith is kind of like that. He's very touchdown dependent. Last year, I think I saw he had 6 versus, and then Rudolph's going to left out 1. So, I mean, I do like Irv. I just think that right now a lot of people are overvaluing him.
Yeah,
and I think that for his price at the current moment, it's going to be a hard buy for me. If I already own him, I'm probably holding him, but to buy him is probably going to be pretty hard right now.
I think the thing that makes me a little bit more optimistic about him is that the last 3 weeks of the year alone, he had 5 red zone targets. So they were looking for him in the red zone. And at that point, unless you have Kelsey, Waller, or Kittle, you are looking for red zone targets and touchdowns.
Yeah.
You're not for anything crazy.
I remember seeing he was a big dude. I don't remember how big, but
I want to say he's 6'4", 240.
Yeah,
something like that.
230 or 240. So he's a big boy.
Yeah.
Those red
Don't
zone.
quote me on that. I really don't know off the top of my head, but that's just a rough guess.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure either.
Yeah, but he's definitely a red zone target. So I mean, if that's where he's making his money and they're still targeting him, then yeah, why not? Tight end 7 definitely makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth somebody to risk on, like you had mentioned, where the top 3 and it kind of falls off. I think any of those guys could be like just a good guy to take a shot on, and he's young. I think he's definitely worth a shot.
So do you guys expect that same cliff this year? Do you think the spread's going to be a little more be a little closer as far as standard deviation? We're not going to have this massive jump. Do we think we're going to have a lot more players competing for maybe the top 10?
I would say I don't think you're going to have as many for top 10. I think you might get that top 5 range. I think Hawkinson, depending on who they bring in, might draw some more targets. He might be able to creep up there. Andrews as well. If Baltimore kind of straightens out their offense, they were a little rough in the first half of the season. Other than that, I can't really. I mean, maybe Noah Fant, but I mean, I guess that's going to come down to whether they keep Drew Lock there or if they bring in a better quarterback. I think Fant could maybe make a run, but I think you'll still have a drastic drop after. Because you forget too, Kittle's probably going to be back up there. So, I think you'll have those 3, and then I think you'll still probably see at least probably a 50-point jump, and at least in PPR, I think. But
that's wild, but yeah,
I think. But those 3 guys just get fed like wide receiver 1s in their offense. So I think it's tough. I mean, it's a possibility, but I still think there'll be at least a decent drop.
Yeah, I think the 1 to 3 are still going to stay the same. I think, but then. I think you'll have guys like Pitts and Hawk and Fant and Goddard. All those guys are just going to be one big group again. I think the top 3 will always be a cliff while they're still in their prime, and then after that, it's just kind of a big lump.
Well, we got Darren Waller, who's a stud too, and then you got Trautman coming in. Commit are both going to get more targets. Just Secchi. So those are all guys I'm kind of like watching.
Speaking of Trautman, he's another one who is a benefit of a cap casualty there in New Orleans. We got Cook gets cut, and I think I like Trautman a lot. I liked him last year, and I think this year with New Orleans cap struggle. I can't really see them bringing in anybody of like a bigger name tight end, like say Henry, who's out there, or Jonnu Smith. I just think the money's not going to be there for them to get them. And I think Trautman gets his shot. And I hope that he can at least produce what Cook did. I mean, Cook finished with 7 touchdowns last year on 60 targets, and this was his second year in a row with 60 targets. So if Trautman can see that volume, I don't know athletically if he's going to be a crazy yardage type tight end, but I do think he could have a potential to have that almost double-digit touchdowns, which could be a guy, like you had said, Jake, who might creep up into that top 10.
Right. And I guess a lot of it depends on that quarterback situation. You know, Taysom and then Jameis are obviously names that you hear, but we don't really know who's going to end up there. And so that could be really dependent on that.
How about you, Ryan? How do you feel about Trautman?
I like him. I actually got to thinking, I didn't put it in the show sheet, but what the Saints don't have a whole lot of holes in their roster.
Yeah.
What if they go and draft somebody like Freiermuth or Brevin Jordan?
I've seen a couple I've seen a couple mocks. I did at Yards Per there. I had one like mock draft off of a NFL mock draft, and someone had Freiermuth going to New Orleans, which I think could be. I mean, it's going to kill Trautman. Freiermuth is much better than Trautman, no matter how much you love Trautman.
Yep.
But no, I think that would be the only route that you would see any type of Trautman damage. I don't think it's going to be free agency. So I think it's tough because I like him, but I mean, you could see a sell window almost, because I think a lot of people are expecting a lot more than what he might produce next year.
Right. Yeah, I thought about that too.
Yeah, I mean, are you a little concerned about his lack of usage last year? I mean, he never ran more than 20 routes in a game at all last year.
Yeah, there was a lot of concerns. Well, the fact that coupled with the fact that, I mean, Taysom Hill, there's so many question marks. He's a good runner and like a good fantasy player, but I wasn't feeling his passing game at all. That's what you need from a tight end. You need somebody who can throw the ball. So, like, yeah, between these tight ends, like there's just so much subjectivity of what's going to happen next year outside the top guys. Like, so like I'm in such an interesting position as far as fantasy dynasty goes. I've got a whole bunch of like guys that are just on the fence between Trautman, Commit, and then Donald Parham Jr. All guys who maybe they're top tight end or someone could be brought in. And I feel like that's a tight end landscape just kind of across the board.
Yeah, I just feel like that's just a constant with those tight ends. Like outside of those top guys, it's just kind of it's worth taking a shot on a lot of these guys because that is such a close range. Like you said, when I factored in Irv Smith being tight end 7, I mean, he only had 150 points. He would have still been 140 points behind Darren Waller, I believe. So, I mean, there's just a crazy drop off. And I think that all these guys are worth taking a shot if you can get them cheap enough, or if they're guys you hold. If you were lucky enough to hold Trautman in, like, say, your taxi squad or something on a dynasty roster. We also had, I think he's a little bit less of a fantasy impact, but Tyrell Williams did sign in Detroit. Currently, though, at the moment, he is the only veteran wide receiver on the team aside from Quintez Cephas. I think he fills a different role than Cephas. He's more of that field stretcher. So I think, I mean, currently as it sits, I mean, he's really probably most likely their wide receiver 1. And I think the news is kind of going out that Galladay, I saw a couple rumors. I mean, obviously they're rumors, but that Galladay is not going to get tagged. So I don't know what to make of this, honestly. Truthfully, I mean, I'll let you go, Ryan. I know you got a little bit here on the show sheet about him. How do you feel about this signing?
Well, he's one of those guys that his analytics are actually pretty eye-popping. I actually didn't know that he had graded out this well from Player Profiler. But 98th percentile catch radius, 85th percentile agility score, 89th percentile burst score, and 80th percentile speed score. He's got over 600 yards in every season, and he plays at least 14 games and a career 16.1 yard per catch. So, I mean, he's definitely a legit deep threat, and he was with Anthony Lynn for 2 seasons, so they have that familiarity with each other now that he's the OC over there in Detroit. So I mean, I don't think you don't bring a guy like him in as a rebuilding team if you don't think he's going to contribute and help out in the locker room and on the field. So that's why I'm not really sure if they're going to bring Galladay back, because I think he showed he doesn't want to be there. So not really somebody you want in that locker room right now when you're trying to build a culture and all that stuff. So I think they're definitely going to use him. I'm not sure where he's going to rank at in terms of fantasy, because there's too many variables. They could easily draft a Chase or somebody like that in the draft in the first round. So I'm not really sure how I feel about him right at the moment. I guess it's more of like a wait and see type of thing to see who else they bring in. But he's going to be third at the very best. He's going to be third in the pecking order with Swift and Hawk. So I like the signing overall. I'm just not quite sure how I feel about him in terms of fantasy. Definitely more of a redraft player than dynasty.
Yeah, I think he's like a good best ball even too, like just kind of that guy that could be something. I mean, I remember, I think it was a couple of years ago when he was with the Raiders. I mean, he kind of had a little stint of like production there where he could have been fantasy viable. What do you think, Jake? How do you feel about it?
I haven't dug in a whole lot on him, but when I did watch him a little bit with the Raiders, and I was never a big fan. I haven't dug into his profile though. I tell you, I do love that player profiler though. Nice little shout out to him.
Right. I love player profiler. It's great. That's what I use for everything.
Same. Yeah. Literally my whole database is from that. But yeah, I need to dig on more on him to speak educatedly on it. So
yeah, I mean, I put in my notes, I was just kind of like, it's basically if he's free, it might be worth a shot if you're in like a deeper league, if he's still out there somehow, or if he's somebody you can just pick up off the waiver wire, it might be worth a shot.
Definitely.
I wouldn't go crazy spending any fab or anything like that on him, but as of right now, I mean, he sits at a good opportunity to see a lot of targets.
Well, that goes back to what Ryan was saying. So, they're talking. You said Jamar Chase could go there. Whoever. This is such a deep wide receiver class that I think so many teams are willing to gamble and draft because there are so many good wide receivers. So, I just personally, I'm not high on them in that regard. But now, if they don't draft anybody, then yeah, just on targets alone, he might be worth something. Definitely for free pickup.
Agreed. All right, so the meat of our episode this week is going to be starting our rookie wide receiver breakdowns. We decided to go from our lowest ranked wide receivers to the highest. We are using the yards per rankings. So I kind of want to, before we get into that, I just kind of want to go over, I'll start with you, Ryan, and then go to Jake, and I can close it. What are we kind of looking for when we're ranking these wide receivers, or just what are we looking for as something that we like, that we think will make them transition into the NFL and be a successful fantasy asset?
Well, number one for me is I want to see somebody that can separate well. I don't want to see too many guys that are a prospect that has to have a contested catch every time they're throwing the ball. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to see them be able to separate, especially at the college level. If you can't separate consistently at the college level, I find it hard to believe that you're going to be able to do it at the pro level, because corners are much faster, they're much stronger. Everybody is the one of one in their conference in the NFL. Like, there's no, like, yeah, there's bad NFL corners, but the worst NFL corner is debatably a top 5 college corner at any given point. So I want to see separation, consistent separation at the college level. Strong hands, yak is definitely a plus. Size to me matters to an extent, but it doesn't at the same time. As long as you're not, oh man, like the Tutu Atwell's too small for me. Like, he's way off my list. He's not even. He's not somebody else. Just because he's just too small. I don't trust him to stay healthy and be consistently in the lineups every week. So other than that, as long as they, like I said, strong hands, ability to separate, and yak ability is my 3 biggest things. If I see that, then I'm probably going to have him ranked higher than most people.
Nice. How about you, Jake?
First off, I love the question because this kind of sets up the whole – gives us a good chance to talk about exactly how we analyze But originally, when I first got into this, I was super into the film and learned a lot there. But at the same time, I went back and decided, okay, well, let's see if all the numbers support everything I'm watching with my eyes. And what's awesome is most of it did. But so I ran this regression model. I took 3 years of data, looked at the top 100 receivers from the past 3 years, and then I did about 15 different categories where I looked at each stat. And then this regression model tells you of all these 15 different stats, meaning like yards per reception, burst score, speed score, height, weight. Is there any correlation with any of these leading to higher fantasy points? And what was awesome is there was correlation, and it was dominator rating, yards per reception, and breakout age. Also draft capital. I think that's kind of a given though. So for me, I looked at dominator rating, yards per reception, and BOA. I can't remember which one I had as or how they're weighted, but they were all relevant and meant something. So when I basically ran this analysis, a lot of it correlated with the tape, which was really cool. I was under the impression that size mattered, and if you weren't big enough, you weren't going to be successful in the NFL. And I still believe that to a degree, going back to the Tutu Atwell. But it's like, how do you discount somebody like Devonta Smith, who has just been an absolute stud?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he has a 47% dominator rating at Alabama. Like, that's incredible. So how do you ignore that and be like, okay, well, he's not big enough? So I don't know. For me, I ended up going with – so I created these rankings, and then I looked at the data, and then I looked at I basically created tiers within this data. So like guys like Rashad Bateman, Jamar Chase, and Devonta Smith. We'll use those three. So as far as like my analysis, a lot of these guys are at the top, but I feel more comfortable taking a guy who's bigger, who's more durable, in my opinion. And so that's how I did my tier. So even if you were 3 or 4 points higher because you were dominator rating or whatever, I would still count in size, because I'm looking at guys like DK Metcalf and guys like AJ Brown, who are these just monsters who also dominated, but they had the size too. So that's kind of how I've weighted. I know there's a lot of information, but that's how I ran mine and arrived at my decisions.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I pretty much agree mostly with what you're saying. I think for me, it's a big, it's a marriage for me. I know there's a big argument on Twitter about, is it analytics or is it film?
Yeah.
But for me, I almost go the same route that you went. It's for me, I got to see it first. If the guy doesn't look like if he doesn't look like he's playing fast, or he doesn't look like he is dominating almost, we'll just use that as the term. To me, it's just, there's no interest. As much as the stats or the analytical profile tell me like, oh, this guy's really good, if he looks like he's getting ran down by a linebacker, I don't believe that he ran a 4.440. Okay. And if he did, it's because he can run without pads. Like, there's a lot to me, like, game speed to me speaks volumes. I think I like to see like the lateral movements and being able to move in and out of cuts versus being able to run fast really in a straight line. 100%. So I think it seems like we're pretty close on that same style of like grading process, I guess.
I think so too.
So why don't we just kind of jump right in here? We're going to start off with Anthony Schwartz. He is a junior out of Auburn, 6 foot, 179, 20 years old. How do you guys feel about him? Ryan, why don't you lead us off?
I was actually pretty impressed by him. This week was the first time I actually watched any film on him. So, and like you said, I want to see something first. I actually don't go into the analytics, and especially for the prospects, until I actually see what I want to on film. But he's debatably the fastest player in the country. He's going to come in the NFL and be one of the fastest guys in the league, if not the fastest. I have it on the notes that I'd love to see him and Tyreek Hill in a race, because I think that would just be fun to watch. But he was using that type of role in college anyways. He was using those jet sweeps and those quick little dump off passes and screen passes, things like that.
Yeah, back to you with the speed real quick. I think I saw when I was doing my thread and stuff on him, I think I saw that he ran at like a 10-second 100-meter. And I think he was almost I don't know if he was the state champion or whatnot in don't remember what state he was in, but in high school, he was definitely a top track athlete. So, I mean, you're definitely on with that speed.
I think he actually won a national title in the 100.
I saw something along those lines, yeah.
He held the U17 record up in, as far as I know, he had broken the U17 record back in high school. So, I mean, he's a different type of fast. He for sure is going to be one of the fastest guys in the league, if not the fastest. Just a couple other things. I like the way he hand catches. He doesn't let the ball come into his body. He reaches out his hands and uses his hands to catch the ball. And I like to see that. I don't like to see guys let the ball get to them first. I like to see them go snatch the ball as opposed to letting them get it hit in the chest or stomach catch it or anything like that. I would like to see where his route tree is because, like I said, he was using that jet sweep and screen type of situation, and you never really got to see him run those traditional routes that you see in the NFL. So I'd really like to see where exactly his route tree lies. He had a lot of manufactured touches, like I said, jet sweeps, things like that. That was mainly what I saw on tape. But despite how fast he is, I didn't see him return kicks. When I looked into his return stats, he did not have any sort of major return stats, which makes me a little wary that he's a little stiff in the hips and doesn't have great lateral agility, like side to side, kind of like Henry Ruggs. So, and with that side to side motion, lateral movement, he does take a lot of big hits. I saw him get rocked a couple of times on tape, just not being able to move out of the way of defenders and just getting crushed. And that led to some ball security issues as well. So I do have a lot of questions with him, but I did like a couple of things about him. I think he reminds me of a slimmer Marquise Goodwin type player, where he's going to be a burner for sure. He's definitely going to be somebody that you're throwing deep downfield and getting some manufactured touches in. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, that aligns almost exactly with what I had. So I kind of labeled him a one-trick pony. You're talking about these jet sweeps, and like you just didn't see a whole lot from him other than that. And we don't know if that's lack of ability or if it's just coaching. But I was concerned that somebody so fast isn't involved more in the kickoff return or punting game as far as improved stats. And then, I mean, obviously he's fast as hell, but. And it's funny you made that Tyreek comment. I think that if he were to go to a team and he could succeed, I think it would be the Chiefs. A team that's so spread out and so fast. But other than like a team like that, I just don't see the NFL success for him. And again, it goes back to lack of seeing diverse like routes. You literally see the same thing with him. He's just so fast and it works, but I don't see that working at the NFL level.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Ryan, you started off and hit it on the head, and I think, Jake, you too. I think this is going to sound strange because we're talking about how fast he is, but to me, I think he lacks quickness. I think what it is his, almost like Ryan said, he's kind of stiff in the hips, and he doesn't have lateral movement, and I think that's why he wasn't used in the punt return game. I don't think he's necessarily super elusive. He's just very fast, and that's why he looks so stiff. He almost runs like he's running the 100-meter. You know what I mean? He stays tight and he runs tight, and he's just a burner. And I think, again, like you guys said, I think there's not much to me to show me that he's going to have NFL success. And I think the struggle with the route tree too could be that Auburn offense, because even a guy that we have ranked higher in like Seth Williams is also a guy who struggled this year in that offense. Why don't we move on to a guy that I'm a little intrigued with? I think coming out of high school, he was a pretty high recruit. I think he just kind of didn't pan out down in Florida. But we got Trayvon Grimes. He's a 6'4", 217, and he's a senior out of Florida. Jake, why don't you lead us off with this one? How do you feel about Trayvon Grimes?
So he looked like a decent yak guy. I didn't actually get into the numbers on that, so that's more of a film observation. So I don't know how accurate that is, but I did like his ability he's just so big. He didn't seem slow compared to some of the others that we'll talk about here in a bit. But and then you wonder, a lot of it goes, would he have been more successful with guys like Kadarius Toney and Pitt's not there, or did that actually benefit him? The fact that they're drawing that double coverage, and so it gives him an opportunity to get open. But I mean, he still looks pretty good as the number 3. But it's always tough for me whenever you're looking at a team like that to say, did that actually benefit him because he's drawn the third corner, or was that actually hurting him because he wasn't getting those targets that he could have somewhere else? So my analysis was he was big, looked like a good red zone threat. Looked like he was good after the catch, but overall, I wasn't sure how I felt about him beyond that, honestly.
Yeah, he's another one of those guys. Almost like that same thing where I said with Tyrell Williams. I just feel I don't know about him. Like I just feel you look at it, his analytical profile, like say from Player Profiler, he's in the bottom tier of a lot of these stats in the Dominator, and the breakout age he doesn't even have one. So for me, I feel like those are the top 2 that I really want to see as far as that analytical profile goes. And then even you flip on the tape, I mean, he had 9 touchdowns this year, which he's kind of a red zone target. You would see that with his size, but he just never really topped more than 600 yards. And he's kind of a freak athlete, I think. I mean, he's really quick for his size.
Yeah.
He does a lot of things well. I mean, he's a decent blocker, and I think he's a guy that, depending on the landing spot, I mean, he could have a potential to break out. I just think, depending on where I have him going, is like a 4th or 5th round rookie pick. So I think for me, I would take a Grimes over like a Tutu Atwell or an Anthony Schwartz. Like, I just feel like his size and his build, it fits better to an NFL team that would be able to possibly turn into a fantasy productive player. Ryan, what do you have to add on that? Anything?
Not really. No, like I said, this is this week was the first time I watched all these guys. So, like you said, he's a decent run blocker. He's willing, but he definitely needs some work in that department. He had the one thing that really stuck out to me on tape was that catch that he had against Georgia. I don't know if either of you guys remember it or saw it, but he had this incredible catch in the end zone against Georgia where he high points the ball and shows his strong hands because he impacts the ground super hard, but he's able to just bring the ball in and control it and corral it for a touchdown. And it was a beautiful catch. I think I rewound it like 3 or 4 times just watching it because I'm just like, that was impressive for a guy that I had never seen before. And the thing with the Dominator rating, he's working with Kadarius Toney and he's working with Kyle Pitts. Both of those guys Kyle Pitts is for sure a first-round pick. Toney's being mocked as a first-round pick. So I'm not going to knock him too much on that because I'm not a huge fan of Trask either, even though Trask played well last year. I'm not a huge fan of Trask. So I don't want to knock him too much on that, but he's definitely a raw prospect that needs some polishing up and needs some work. But he could definitely getting in the right situation. He could definitely be a factor in year 2 or 3. He could probably have a nice little breakout season, and once he gets for a feel of the NFL and get some coaches at the highest level with him.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like I said, I think he's just a good kind of late round target. And I mean, I've seen him. I don't even know if I've seen him go in a lot of rookie mocks as of recently that I've done. So I think in that 4th or 5th round range, if you want to take a shot at him, I think he's a good one. Like I said, I mean, coming out of high school, I believe there's some tape out there that I saw of him at a camp, and I mean, he was like blowing by and he's very physical at the line, and he was just beating up on NFL corners that are currently in the NFL right now. So I think he sustained a knee injury, and I think that kind of set him back. And I don't know. I just like him.
Yeah, I like his physicality too. That's a good point.
Jeremy, did he go in that mock that we did with the undroppables?
I want to say no. I don't think he did.
I don't think he did.
But again, that's what I'm saying. I mean, that 4th, 5th round range, this is a guy I'd be willing to take a shot on if I have an extra rookie pick laying around. Stick him on a taxi squad and let him. Who knows?
Right.
Going to another guy around his size is TJ Vasher. He's 6'6", 215 pounds. He's a 22-year-old senior out of Texas Tech. This is a guy who kind of caught my eye. I was watching some other tape, and I honestly hadn't heard of him that much, and he caught my eye, and big thing that stands out is his breakout age. He's actually in the 90th percentile of breakout age at 19 years old. And he's another guy that's just a matchup nightmare. I mean, this guy is 6'6", and for his size, and he's lengthy. He could use to put on some pounds, but I think that he runs decent routes for a 6'6" guy, and he's more than just that go up and get kind of like touchdown red zone target. I think that he has decent body control too for his size. There's a lot of his catches are kind of acrobatic. Like he has this ability to go down and get balls. Like there's one catch along the sidelines. I don't remember exactly which game he was playing in, but he literally basically toe taps it and goes out and reaches the ball. I mean, the ball had to be 2 or 3 feet out of bounds, and he was able to make that catch. And he's just another guy that's going to go late in your draft. And I think as another guy that, depending on where you put him in an offense with an offensive coordinator that can use him in the right way, I think he could, again, become that valuable fantasy asset. We're talking about TJ Vasher, Blazing Razor. How about you, Ryan? How do you feel about TJ Vasher?
I actually like him a lot. I shouldn't say a lot. I'm sorry. I rephrase that. I like him a little bit. I like his size. I like his size a lot because, like you said, he can put on a little bit of muscle. It won't take a whole lot for a guy with his frame to put on a couple extra pounds and become a little bit more physical. The problem is that in my research, I found that some of the staff at Texas Tech were saying that he lacks work ethic. Like he doesn't want to work to be great at the next level. Like they had to constantly push him to work harder in the weight room, constantly push him to work harder in the practice field and things like that. And that's a big concern for me for somebody that's a raw prospect like he is. When somebody's got the natural talent that he does with great hands, and he is quick off the snap. He's not fast, but he plays faster than he is. He looks faster on the field than he actually is, I think. But like I said, the work ethic is a big problem for me. I knowing that's how you get kicked out of the NFL. That's how you lose your job. That's how Eddie Lacy went from an RB1 to nothing in a season because he stopped working out and gained weight, and now he's done. Same thing with Kelvin Benjamin. Kelvin Benjamin had natural ability and was great size, just like Vasher does, but he lacked a work ethic and he got out of shape. So it's one of those things where it's how good do you want to be? Like you have all the resources in the world to be great at your position. Do you make the most of it, or do you just kind of just say, yeah, I'm here, let's get paid and be out?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that's something that you really have to look into too for these rookie prospects. I think it was something that we didn't really touch on when we went over what we're looking for, but I'm glad you brought that up, Ryan. I think that's a key something too to look for too while you're looking at these guys is work ethic and almost like an ability to improve. If you see them improving over year, that's also a good thing to keep an eye out on. Jake, how do you feel about Vasher?
Yeah, so Ryan, that was a really good point. I hadn't seen anything about that, so I'm glad you brought that up. And Jeremy, I agreed with a lot of the points you had too. I was super surprised with his acrobatic catches as well, because at 6'6", you just don't expect somebody to make those catches. Now, there were a lot of things I didn't like about him. I thought on the field he looked slow. Now maybe that's because he's so big, but I didn't like his separation. Now he was good at winning a lot of 50-50s. It seemed like, but it seemed like that was just his size because he's so big. He had that ability, but I don't think at the NFL level he's going to be able to do that on these corners that are stronger, that are probably much more willpower, dudes who really want it. And especially after you mentioned that lack of work ethic, he's going to get out there and some of these dudes are going to get physical with him. And is he going to approach it with okay, I'm going to win mindset, or is like, oh man, I don't feel like working this hard, so that's a concern as well. But I did like his size. I liked his acrobatic catches. I thought he'd be a great red zone threat. He seemed too slow to be a threat to me anywhere else on the field.
So since we just went over both our two 6'4" or taller guys, who are we taking? Would you rather have Grimes or Vasher if you're on the clock in the 4th round?
Grimes, definitely.
Ryan?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go. Knowing what I know about a work ethic, I got to go Grimes because I feel like Grimes is gonna give you everything he's got. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think aside from knowing that work ethic before you told me that, I mean, I would have went Vasher and but I could see leaning towards Grimes. I feel like to me they're both right in that same area, and I think just depending on what you're looking for, I think that's kind of who you'll end up with. Why don't we move on to another guy under 6 foot this time? We have Daz Newsom, 5'11", 190 pounds. He is a 21-year-old senior out of UNC. Jake, why don't you start us off with him?
Great. Yeah, well, I actually like Daz. I hadn't watched his tape until today. I'd looked at his analytical profile, but I was pretty surprised. I thought he looked explosive. He wasn't super there was nothing else outside of that really blew my mind, but he just seemed so explosive. His routes seemed crisp. He was quick. He wasn't scared to get right there in the action and make challenge catches. And I liked him. I kind of was surprised that he just seemed like he was all over the field. He was quick. He was making good cuts. There was a lot of things I liked about him. I usually don't prefer smaller guys, but I think of this group, he was probably one of my favorites as far as film goes. Let me see what other notes I had on him. Yeah, and then again, this one kind of goes back to the Trayvon Grimes thing where it's like you have so many guys in that offense that are so good. I wonder if that's what kind of led to some of his success, because you got Diami, who's obviously a great deep threat, Michael Carter, and then you got Devonta. Those are just some studs, Michael Carter and Devonta are going to go pretty early, so is Diami. So it's just like, I don't know. I think there were a lot of times he was just wide open. I think it was because of that. But there were a lot of times he was making these catches in traffic. He seemed quick. So I like Daz, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of those things that you had alluded to, I agree with. I think the big thing with Daz, I think, is he needs to polish everything up. I see him as a very good athlete. He's very quick. Something I didn't really like, it seemed like he tended to be that kind of a body catcher kind of guy. I feel like he kind of lets the ball come to him. He also, if you watch to a lot of his crossing routes and out routes, he doesn't really work back to the ball. I remember I heard it, and I'm not sure who it was who had said it. I do believe it was either Torrey Holt or somebody like that had always said that on like their crossing routes, they always work back towards the ball. Someone had told me that, and
sure.
Coming from one of those guys, and it makes the most sense. You're going to come, instead of working away from the ball, say towards the DB, if you work towards the ball, you're going to come in and you're going to get that first opportunity to make that catch. And a guy at 5'11", I think that's something that he could work on to make it a little better. But he is a willing blocker, and I think that's something that could find his way onto the field. I also could see him getting used in a return game. So I think he definitely needs some work, but he's a good guy who could definitely find his way into being maybe a little bit more than a gadget player, but I think it might take a year or two. Ryan, you got anything to add for Daz Newsom?
Not really. No, he's the exact opposite of the guy that we just talked about. I mean, he, in every sense of the word, he's somebody that I thought looked like a super competitive guy. He plays a lot of heart. I thought separates well, good agility, good lateral movement. In my opinion, I think he has to be in the slot though with his size. I think he's going to have to be a slot receiver in the NFL, which is fine. Those guys are getting a lot of targets and a lot of fantasy points nowadays. So that's not really a problem for me. But other than that, yeah, I think he just needs touched up on a little couple things here and there, and yeah, I don't really got too much more on him.
I'm gonna take a guess and say we'll be unanimous on this one again, but so both of our more so slot speed guys, are we taking Anthony Schwartz or are we taking Daz Newsom?
Daz Newsom.
Ryan? Yeah, I'm gonna probably say Daz too.
I feel like that's what we wanted Schwartz to be. You want Schwartz with Newsom's abilities, but that speed, or I guess the opposite. You want that speed with Newsom, and so yeah, definitely Newsom.
All right, let's get back to our more prototypical sized wide receiver here. This guy's been getting a lot of flack on Twitter. I'm not going to say I'm super high on him, but we got Sage Schrott. He is 6'3", 215 pounds. He is a 22-year-old junior out of Wake Forest. He was able to produce a 1,000-yard season in 2019. if that matters to most. He also surprisingly had a 90th percentile dominator rating. I mean, he had a 44.9% college dominator rating. I mean, his breakout age isn't great. It was at 20, which is a 53rd percentile, so that kind of almost negates it. But he's not really a speed guy. He's very physical. He's a leverage type receiver. He can create yak, but he's not like a crazy yak guy. And his yak's created through physicality, just the way his routes are ran and the way he wins in the route. And I mean, he produced 11 touchdowns too in 2019, which I forgot to mention. I think he seems like he's an interesting guy. I think he's very slow looking on film, and I'd be interesting to see what his numbers are at his pro day. He's another guy that's hard to peg. I think just these three guys that we picked here in this 6'3" range, just kind of all are very similar. They're guys that have the size and the height, but it's just they kind of lack that like explosive, like, oh, they're going to be a stud type receiver. How do you feel, Ryan, about Sage Schrott?
He's actually the one that I've heard of the most. As most of the listeners know, I listen to podcasts basically every day of my life at work. So he's one of the names that I've heard, definitely the name that I've heard the most out of these guys. I was doing a little bit of research before the show, and I saw that I think it was Draft Profiler that said that he was like AJ Green-esque in terms of how he's going to win at the NFL level. Like if he wants to win at the NFL level, he's not going to do it with his speed. He's going to have to do it with his technicality and his route running. And I could see that he's not as good of a route runner as AJ Green is, and I don't think he will be, even if he does reach his ceiling. But that's how he's going to win. He's going to have to be physical. He's going to have to be tough. He's going to have to win those 50-50 balls, and he's going to have to win in his routes. If he can't do that at the NFL level, then he's not going to be much of anything. Because, like you said, he's not a burner. He's not real fast. So he's just one of those guys that if he refines his route running and he's able to get a little cleaner out of breaks and increase his route tree a little bit, I think he can be a weapon at the next level. But like I said, he's not the burner type guy. He's not the most stout guy in terms of his body. Like he's not a DK Metcalf or AJ Brown, like Jake had mentioned earlier. But if he can refine his skills and his routes and things like that, he should be fine at the next level.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. How do you feel, Jake?
Yeah, you guys kind of summed up a lot of my thoughts. I really so of the group, he was definitely my favorite. I loved his ability to win the 50-50, and it goes back to that leverage thing you were talking about. He just seems so good at creating that leverage in the air and getting the ball at the high point. I was really impressed with that. And then also I liked his yak. He seemed like a super physical guy who, again, we go back to heart and effort. He seemed like he wanted it, And so that was something I really liked. And then again, like I like to watch the film, but I want the data to support it. And that dominator rating is phenomenal. 44.9. I loved that. Yeah, again, he's not the fastest guy. He's not the biggest guy, but he does have some tools, and I think with the right team, I think he could be successful. He's definitely my favorite of the group.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just going to be that physical type that I think a lot of teams, it's tough because the NFL is kind of going the other way. They're kind of going towards that speedy, short type, versatile wide receiver like the Rondell Moores, the Tonys, the Tyreek Hills, like just those kind of versatile type route runners. And I think Schrott is that. He's not that, and he's just it's tough because I feel like his speed is really going to hurt him at the next level. I think he looks very slow against college DBs, and I worry that at the next level he's going to be so slow that he's not going to be able to create that separation in any way, shape, or form, no matter how physical he is. And you see some of these NFL quarterbacks that come in that just they won't throw into those windows. I mean, the better ones will, but if he ends up on a team like, say, with Drew Lock at quarterback in Denver, like, I don't think he'll get the ball thrown to him. Like, you know what I mean? He's just not going to look open to them, and he's not going to get the opportunity to win that 50-50 ball.
Yeah,
so
I think. Go ahead.
I think landing spot's key for him.
Yeah, I like the way you kind of describe that. It's like that kind of stuck in the middle thing that is the way I want to describe it. He's not big enough to where he can just dominate based on size. He's not small enough to where he can dominate based on speed. He's just kind of right there in between, like what you're kind of looking for. But yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
where would you want to see him go? Do you think? Like where do you think somebody that can like for Green Bay went to my head like instantly when I thought about like 50-50 balls and having to win on those routes and things like that. But that's just because Aaron Rodgers is so pinpoint accurate that he could win 50-50 balls like that. But I don't know how you guys feel about a landing spot in particular.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought much of it. I don't want to give the generic easy answer because I always feel like anytime I'm talking about a receiver, I'm like, yeah, they'd be a great fit in Green Bay or Kansas City where these, obviously you got Mahomes and Rodgers. So I don't know, like he kind of reminds me of a smaller Allen Robinson where Allen Robinson he's not this super fast guy. He's pretty big, but it's just always winning at the 50-50. He's always right there, hands extended at the high point. And so obviously I'm not trying to make that comparison. I don't think he's on that level, but I think the way he catches the ball reminded me of him.
Yeah, Jake, don't worry. One or two episodes back, I said Nico Collins was going to be Michael Thomas, so you trust me that. So don't worry, you're nowhere near. You're good. That's Allen Robinson's nothing compared to that comp. So
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, Schrott's probably tough. I think I'd like to see him go where he'd be a complementary piece, like you said. I know Kansas City seems like a easy answer, but somewhere with an offense like that, possibly Kansas City, possibly. I mean, I could see him even working in Tennessee, maybe if Corey Davis leaves, just kind of like a complementary piece to like. He's not going to be your guy, so just like a complementary piece wherever he can land, somewhere like that.
Titans fan says no.
No, we don't. I think he's got good catchability, but I don't have enough faith in him to want him draft. And I feel like there's so many better guys in this draft.
Oh yeah, no, I agree, and I think I agree. I mean, this draft is so deep that these guys. It's crazy to think that we have Schwartz like almost in that lower 5 range. I just think normally this is a guy who might creep up into like that mid 3rd round just because of his size and what he produced at Wake Forest. But why don't we go around here? We'll start with you, Ryan. We'll just kind of sum up this episode. And why don't you go over anything new or anything upcoming you have on Twitter and where people can find you on Twitter for people who just joined?
Real quick, Jeremy. One of the listeners had a question at the very beginning of the episode. I don't know if you wanted to look at that and maybe go over that real quick.
Swing back. All right, yeah. Why don't we? Well, the question is do you guys think Zeke will be a top 5 running back with a healthy Dak? Ryan, start us off.
Top 5 is tough for me with Zeke, man. My heart says yes just because it's Zeke, like just the name value alone just screams yes. But with CMC coming back healthy, Saquon coming back healthy, all these young studs like Akers and Swift and Gibby and James Robinson, if they don't bring somebody in, I mean, Miles Sanders should have a better year. Like the running back landscape is kind of clogged right now. So my heart wants to say yes for his name value, but I'm going to have to say no because he's reaching that age apex where you don't want him to be. The offensive line isn't nearly as good anymore. Their defense is bad, so they're going to have to throw the ball. Like Jake had said, Dak had to throw the ball 50 some times in a couple of games. There, like that's insane. He's not going to. His whole premise when he was younger was volume based and being able to run for 110 yards a game, and he can't do that anymore. He doesn't. So I'm gonna have to say no. He will not be a top 5 running back with a healthy back.
Jake?
Yeah, I'd say top 10, but definitely not top 5. Off the top of my head, I made a quick list. I got Henry, Cook, Kamara, Chubb, Barkley, CMC, all those guys definitely higher. Especially if the Cowboys don't improve that defense, we're looking at the same thing where Dak's going to be slinging the ball, especially with that receiving core there. So I like Zeke, and I think he's a stud, but I don't think he's a top 5 this year.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with you guys. I don't think he's going to be top 5. I think he can push that 5 to 10 range. I think depending on, like you guys said, there's just so many people coming back. You got Barkley coming back, CMC coming back. Those should be top 5 guys. I mean, I don't see Cook falling off aside from an injury. You've got Kamara, who could possibly be there. I think Kamara is the most likely to fall out of the top 5, depending on the quarterback situation. But you still have guys that could even squeak in, like Ryan had mentioned, in Antonio Gibson, Swift.
Right.
Jonathan Taylor's going to be right there.
Yeah, I think we've talked about Jonathan Taylor too.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
J.K. Dobbins, I think, has a good chance depending on the workload that the Ravens give him. I think that there's so many, like Ryan had alluded to. I think we actually, we'll plug the Clubhouse in there. I was on Clubhouse, and I think we had a discussion on Sunday about this, that there is just a flooded market in running back right now, and I think it's tough to really just narrow down like these rankings, because it could be any guy could finish top 10 once you get outside of like those top 3 with like CMC, Barkley, and Cook. After that, I feel like, and Taylor, out of those 4, I think after that, I mean, anybody could finish 5 through 12. So yeah, why don't we, good idea, Ryan, there to swing back. But yeah, Ryan, why don't you start us off and just kind of let everybody know where they can find you for anybody who just joined, and anything you got coming up.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Mackey_FFB. I'm going to be doing a lot more work on the rookie profiles here. I'm actually looking, if anybody knows of any beat reporters to follow, I'm actually looking to get some beat reporters on Twitter to follow to help with the free agent frenzy that's about to be approaching. So I'd like to get a little heads up on that. And those guys always seem to be plugged in really well. So other than getting rookie profiles finished up here and getting ready for the free agent market that's about to open up, just getting ready and working on my dynasty teams and improving those. And my DMs are always open if you guys ever had any questions or anything like that. So feel free.
Nice. Jake, how about you?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. I love talking dynasty, especially rookies right now. This is the deepest I've ever dug in, and I'm having a blast. So thanks for having me, first off.
That was a pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah. And second off, I'm going to be releasing those rankings I was talking about with all this data that I've thrown in. I think I've got something around 6,000 different cells of just data. So pretty excited to get that finished up and share what I found. So my rookie rankings will be coming out pretty soon. What else? Yeah, definitely going to be working on some rookie profiles as well. Those have kind of taken a backseat to this. Just this project's taken me like 40 hours, but I'm having fun with it. Yeah, again, thanks for having me. So I appreciate you guys. Twitter is over here, I think. I don't know how to.
Other way. There you go.
There
she is.
Dynasty_Jake. Not to be confused with the other Dynasty Jake. Sorry. Didn't mean to.
Yeah, there was a little quarrel there I saw, so it's all right. It happens, you know.
What it is.
Yeah.
Mimic, I'm not. So I'm a different guy, but yeah, thanks for having me, fellas.
Yeah, no problem. It was a pleasure. I think you brought a lot to it. We'll definitely have you on. I know you'd mentioned about Jared Patterson. I'm another Jared Patterson fan. Once we get into those running backs a little closer to the draft, we might be giving you another call.
Please do. I love especially that guy.
But yeah,
I might have to come up with a counter argument. I might have to come up with a counter argument for not to draft Jared Patterson.
Please do. I'm looking for him. I need those because I'm overboard with it.
But yeah, I am Jeremy, and you can find me on Twitter at PopesFFH. You can check at the at yards per. There'll be some more articles I'm working on the rankings over there, as well as just finishing up the rookie threads that I've been dropping on Twitter. I got to finish up some tight ends and quarterbacks and then set out the rankings that way. Other than that, I don't have too much else going on. So I think that's going to finish us up for today. Thanks for tuning in, and why doesn't everybody stay safe and healthy? And let's hope to see you next time here on the Fantasy Playmakers podcast.